Hello. Hi. In continuation, in our second area or section of the National Classification Framework, which we say the NCQF classification framework, or how we classify our qualification, is a very important aspect which was based on a research that every qualification that is within our region is classified within a particular field. And this is what we are going to relate to now and also see how it graduates to our evaluation of qualification. Remember, what you're granted in your evaluation of qualification may cascade to what you may be given for assessor accreditation as well as your moderate accreditation. That's why it's very important as an assessor, moderator, you get to identify with this particular concept. I'm happy that we now know our 10 level framework. You can identify each level, each classification. You can also maybe link your qualification with each level of your qualification. Now, let's see. Okay, now a little bit of a background. Now, every qualification that we get has a name, and that name is actually linked to something we call field. A field is a larger, what we call a field of learning. And this classification is very important to differentiate from one field to another. If you're into agriculture, there's a field within that agricultural aspect. If you're into engineering, there's a field connected to that. If you're into business, there's also a field. So there are so many different and multiple qualifications that each one of us may do, but each qualification may be mapped to any one of the fields. Now, field, remember, is a broader combination, I beg your pardon, of learning outcome within a coherent alignment. So we'll see when if it's business, that is could be marketing, we could have accounting, we could have finance, which are connected, and that could be within a particular field. But now, under that, we could have subfield, being more specific to that qualification. Because if now you did a bachelor's in accounting, that could be a subfield that is connected to a larger field. If you did bachelor's degree in finance, that could be a subfield which has a specific name. So a subfield is connected to the field above. Now, when it goes under maybe to domains, you're going now to see now the key topics or learning outcomes which are connected to those particular specific subfield. Now, if you did accounting or bachelor's of accounting or finance, there could be some modules or topics which are connected to learning outcome and assessment criteria. Those who have really observed even the structure for BQ in terms of qualification design, they will see how learning outcomes and assessment criteria are classified within the field classification or subfield classification of that qualification. So you can see qualification may follow a particular hierarchy. All right, and we're going to see shortly and ask ourselves, which field do I belong to in terms of the 14 field classifications that have been provided by BQA. Now, speaking of the 14 field classification, you can see we have this tabulation here on my left. We have key field names. Now, these are the global, or rather the combinations that we talked about earlier, which is the broader combination. We have agriculture and natural conservation, business and commerce, culture and arts, education and training, general skills, and we have health and social services in this page, but they continue all the way. If you go level, field number 7, from humanities all the way to natural, mathematical, and life sciences. Look, even engineering, we have manufacturing in field number 10, which we are referring to as engineering, manufacturing, engineering, and technology. So your qualification may fall within particular classification like this one. If it's mining, you have that. When it comes to law and security, your qualification could be fall into that category. It's not necessarily just law in terms of the legal aspect, but also in taxation. I was surprised that a qualification in taxation is not classified as a business commerce aspect, which we may tend to confuse that, think about it, but it was classified under law and security. So it's very important to also identify with which field we have been allocated, because like I said earlier, this qualification will later determine your assessment field, your moderation field, and sometimes it might conflict if you're moderating something that is not within your field. You can see the catch there. So let's watch out and identify with this particular field. They also go all the way to 14, like I mentioned earlier. The last being services. Now, services are those qualifications which are dealing with service-oriented qualification. You can see simple aspect like personal hygiene, occupational health and safety, transport, security services. They are qualification linked to that. Now you can see on my right in terms of domain names, domestic, occupational health, defense and military, or military and defense, tourism, being a chef qualification in hospitality. That is also a service oriented. So can you see how interesting this is? When you identify with this, you'll be able to connect with what your qualification belong to. You can actually relate to what skills set that you are being classified at. So this is a quick overview on how the field and classification are. And anytime you're going to be granted an evaluation of qualification, your qualification will speak towards what we are talking about. We have had many issues where people talk about, okay, economical engineering or economics engineering. You can see those two verbs, economics engineering. The question is, would you classify that as business, or do you classify that as economics in terms of business? Now, these are logistics that probably will need to dive deeper to understand. If I issue my application to BQA, how will they grant me? It's always important to watch out where you're disgruntled or you're not comfortable with the field that you'll be granted. BQA provides appeals on how you can actually request for a change if your field was not actually granted properly. So note, we have about 14 major classification of field, 1 up to 6 here. We have 7 up to 12, and of course we have 13 up to 14. So watch out this, because the classification of our qualification is very important, because it determines the skill set in which you're going to assess and also in which you're going to moderate. So as assessors and moderators, let's watch out on this to make sure that we have been granted the appropriate field where our quality assurance, assessment and moderation is actually tagged into. So I hope this is a very clear aspect. Please watch out on your notes, look through properly the slides that have been provided for you, and you're able to relate to what we already have here. So see you shortly for the next part of probably what we're going to look at in evaluation, which actually cascades from the classification to how our evaluation, our moderator, assessor and moderator is actually structured, and how it's connected to our Ncqf framework, and also how it's connected to the classification system that we are looking at here. That is the next point we are going to look at shortly. Thank you so much. See you shortly.